All right, today we're going to do an in-depth dive of the revenue distribution chart and how to use it, how it works, and how to drive some increased yield optimization out of it. You may have noticed when you log on the dashboard, underneath the optimization tab, there's this revenue distribution select box. You go there and you can select your app, ad unit, and geo. This would be a segment. You're selecting a segment, which is the app, ad unit, geo. And the reason we don't combine geos or apps or ad units is because it wouldn't make sense to look at your performance in US and Mexico, for instance. So we allow you to choose just the US. In this case, the app and the ad unit are blurred out because this is actual customer data. So we're using this customer data without actually showing who they are. The next thing you'll note is in the top right, you have a period selector, which is the date in which you want to select. Here we're looking from March 3rd to April 3rd, so 30 days. It's set up, I think, 90 days default. Top of the chart, once you actually hit apply and run the chart, you'll see the period time frame, so 3/3 to 4/3. The revenue earned in this segment during this time, so just over 24 grand in this case. The average CPM, $5.94. The average buy price. And the average buy price differs from the average CPM because the average CPM is the average CPM for the whole unit, whereas the average buy price is the average non-zero CPM generated. Let me give you an example of that because that can be confusing, but can also be super valuable. So we'll pull up Excel here. And if you can see, if you have three line items that are running, one at $10, one at $9, one at $1, you get one impression on the $10, $9, which generate almost no money. You have 10,000 impressions buying it at $1. Your average CPM is going to be $1, but your average buy price will be the average of these three buying, which is in this case $6.67. So there's a large discrepancy or disparity between the buy price and the CPM, which is an indication that maybe your floors are too high for the actual value generated in the region. So in this case, we have a buy price and an average CPM that are relatively close. Okay, so once you hit apply, you'll see the first thing is the scatter plot. And what the scatter plot is the non-zero returns from each line item or each ad unit in the region. So over 30 days between MoPub, Facebook, AdMob, and Tapjoy, this is the revenue they've generated. So each one of these dots represents a single day and a single ad unit's return of revenue and CPM. Now on the right side of our axis is revenue. So in this case, this dot has generated $244 on this day at a CPM of $13.49. Now you can see over the 30 days, you see a smattering of revenue. Now this is going to show you where floors are. I'm sure we have a floor around $1 here. We have a floor around, what is it, $6. So it's an interesting to show where, okay, we have a big white space here in between $10 and $13. By itself, interesting, but not really that useful. Oh, the red dotted line, of course, is the average CPM. The next thing we're going to pull in is a histogram, which is a grouping of the revenue earned in the segment during the time. Now, again, this is our revenue earnings, $24,000. And we're going to group on the left side of the y-axis, percentage of rev share. So this bar has generated 17% of your revenue during this time period. Now you can see we have a grouping up here at about $14 and a grouping around $5 here, and then a grouping down here at $1. Now, one final mechanism that's going to come back on your chart is a moving average. What this does is it is the average of the three surrounding segments, so you can start to see average moving over time. Now, looking at this chart, what does this tell you? Well, it tells you there's a big hole right here, a big hole right here in terms of no competition. Most of your revenue is made up in this $14 region. 20-25% of your revenue is made in the $5 region, and then you've got about 10% made down here below $2. Now, looking at this, I'd say there's an opportunity in the middle here and an opportunity at the end. A couple of quick quips is when there's revenue to the grouping, that usually groups around solid ROI. So the demand partner is buying where things are profitable. When there's large scattering, that means the ROI is more flexible. Now, the downside of setting a bunch of floors right here in the middle is you might give opportunity for these higher floors, these higher ad units, to start buying lower because there's not a lot of competition here. So there is another drop down over here, which is the revenue drop down. If you select impressions, it will show you impressions grouping as a percentage of total. Now this changes things quite a bit. You'll notice that 45% of your impressions are sold below $2, where 20% of your impressions are up here and about 30% of your impressions are here. So a huge opportunity for impressions here. Going back to revenue, just so you can see what that looks like again. If you're questioning of where you're going to spend some time, you've got this region here or this region here. You have 45% of your impressions to start driving more value of looking here. One additional drop down here is fill rate. Now, fill rate, as you may know, or as you may have experienced, is an indication of demand strength. The higher the fill rate, the more interested the demand partner, the buyer, is in the impression, which will show similar to the impressions. Bam, look at this. You've got 10% fill rates all along here, and then all of a sudden down here below $2, you see a skyrocketing of 50% impressions below $2. Makes sense. Someone's a lot less interested in buying these high prices. Everyone gets a lot more interested when the prices fall. Classic supply and demand curve. So what do we do in this situation? Well, what I would do, and what I did, is started pushing these low floors up. And I said, you know what? If you look at the number of, or the percentage of revenue earned in this segment, you're looking at below $2, 10%. So you're selling 45% of your impressions below $2. Why don't you start pushing that floor and setting a hard floor at $2? What we did is we set a hard floor at $2. I'm going to fast forward in another revenue distribution chart, keeping in mind the average CPM here, $5.94. You look at one taken over the last 3 days. The average CPM has almost doubled at $9.36. The average buy price has increased as well. And what has happened, your revenue distribution chart, your revenue distribution has spread more towards the middle. You've decreased the low buys, and your overall revenue in the middle is higher. It's more pronounced if you actually look at the impressions on this revenue distribution chart. You went from 45% down to 7%. A small number of impressions have slipped through here, but now the most of your impressions are sold at this mid-tier. So you've effectively forced up demand. So you've used the revenue distribution chart to identify holes. You started setting hard floors and pushing demand to buy at a higher rate.